a village of bustling markets or vibrant festivals, but rather in the quietest corner of the world, where the horizon stretched flat and unbroken in every direction, lay the village of Stillwater. It was not a village of bustling markets or vibrant festivals, but rather a place defined by its profound, unwavering stillness. The air itself seemed to hang heavy, thick with the absence of urgency. The very light of the sun diffused into a soft, unchanging grey. And in this village lived Arthur. Arthur was a man of precise habits, each action a meticulously choreographed step in a lifelong dance of the mundane. His house, a small square dwelling of unpainted wood, stood exactly equidistant from its two nearest neighbors, both of which were identical in every measurable aspect. Inside, the furniture was sparse and functional: a single unadorned wooden table, a single straight-backed chair, and a bed. The bed, a simple cot with a thin, unpatterned grey blanket, was always made with such exactitude that not a single wrinkle marred its surface. Every morning, without fail, the first hint of diffused light would filter through his window, and Arthur would open his eyes. There was no sudden awakening, no jolt or stretch. His eyes simply opened, and he was awake. The digital clock on his bedside table, a gift from a distant, long-forgotten relative, displayed 6 a.m. It was always 6 a.m. The numbers glowed with a faint, unchanging green light. He would then swing his legs over the side of the bed, placing his feet flat on the cool, uncarpeted wooden floor. The temperature of the floor was always the same. He would stand, slowly, allowing his body to adjust to the vertical plane without any undue haste. His movements were deliberate, each muscle engaging with a measured, almost scientific precision. His attire for the day was already laid out on the chair: a pair of perfectly ironed grey trousers and a perfectly white, unblemished shirt. He would pick up the trousers first, holding them by the waist, allowing them to hang perfectly straight before sliding his legs into them. Then, the shirt. He would button it from bottom to top, each button sliding through its corresponding hole with a soft, almost imperceptible click. The collar was always neat, the cuffs always straight. There was no need for a mirror. Arthur knew with absolute certainty that his appearance was, as always, precisely as it should be. Breakfast followed. He would walk to his small, functional kitchen, where a single slice of plain white bread awaited him on a ceramic plate. He would place it in the toaster, a simple two-slice model, and press the lever down. The toaster made a low, consistent hum. He would watch the bread, observing the subtle shift in its color from pale white to a uniform, light golden brown. When the toast popped up, it did so with a soft, gentle thud, never a sudden clatter. He would then retrieve a glass from the cupboard and fill it with lukewarm water from the tap. The water flowed at a steady, unchanging rate, without splash or gurgle. He would sit at the table, his back perfectly straight against the chair. He would pick up the piece of toast, now cooled to a precise temperature, and carefully, using a small, blunt knife, cut it into two exactly equal triangles. The process of eating was a study in controlled consumption. He would pick up one triangle of toast, bring it to his lips, and take a small bite. He would then chew and chew and chew. Each bite was chewed exactly 27 times. He had counted. He had experimented. 27 was the optimal number for complete mastication and the most neutral release of flavor. The lukewarm water was sipped between bites, cleansing his palate without stimulating it. The entire breakfast process took exactly 17 minutes. Upon completion, the plate and glass were rinsed immediately, placed on a small drying rack, and left to air dry. There was no need for a towel. The air of Stillwater was dry and consistent. Then came the preparation for his daily work. Arthur's profession was unique, even in Stillwater. He was the official pebble counter of the River Glimmer. The River Glimmer was a body of water that lived up to its name. It glimmered, not with a sparkling, effervescent shimmer, but with a faint, consistent, almost imperceptible sheen, like a dull polished metal. It flowed with an unvarying, slow current. Its surface rarely disturbed by anything more than the occasional tiny ripple from a falling leaf. From a small wooden chest, Arthur would retrieve his tools. First, his ledger. It was bound in plain grey leather, its pages filled with neat, precise columns of numbers, each entry a testament to a day's count. Then, his counting stick. A smooth, unvarnished piece of wood, exactly 12 inches long, its end slightly flattened for ease of pebble manipulation. Finally, his boxes. 2 small wooden boxes, perfectly square, with smooth, unblemished interiors, and a larger, identical box for the accumulated pebbles. He would place these items into a plain canvas satchel. The satchel was always carried in his left hand, its weight a familiar, unchanging presence. The walk to the river glimmer was a journey of profound sameness. The path was a narrow strip of compacted earth, stretching straight ahead for precisely 2.3 kilometers. There were no hills, no valleys, no bends in the path. To his left and right, rows of identical mature oak trees stood sentinel, their leaves a uniform shade of dull green, rustled with a monotonous, whispering sound that never changed in pitch or rhythm, regardless of the breeze. The breeze itself was a constant gentle pressure, never strong enough to disturb the dust on the path, never weak enough to allow the air to become entirely still. Arthur would walk at a steady, unvarying pace. Each step was exactly the same length, each footfall landing with the same soft crunch on the compacted earth. He did not look left or right, his gaze fixed on a point where the path met the distant, unwavering horizon. The journey took exactly 28 minutes and 15 seconds. Upon reaching the riverbank, Arthur would stop. He would not sigh or stretch or take in the view. The view was, as always, the flat, grey river, the flat, grey sky, the flat, grey plain, stretching into infinity. He would unroll his small grey mat, placing it with meticulous care exactly 3 feet from the water's edge. The mat was made of a durable, untextured fabric designed to provide a consistent surface for his knees. He would then open his canvas satchel and carefully remove his ledger, his counting stick, and his boxes. He would arrange them on the mat in a precise configuration. The ledger to his left opened to the current day's page, the counting stick laid parallel to the ledger, the 2 small boxes stacked neatly to his right, and the larger box positioned just beyond them. His work began. He would select a section of the riverbank, roughly 2 feet by 2 feet. This section was chosen not for any particular feature, but simply because it was the next logical segment in his ongoing linear progression down the river. He would then kneel, his knees settling comfortably onto the mat. With the wooden stick, he would gently, carefully begin to sift through the pebbles. Each pebble was an individual, yet each was also a part of the greater, undifferentiated mass. His eyes, trained by years of dedicated observation, would scan for the specific qualities that defined a glimmer pebble. It had to be smooth. It had to be grey. It had to be within a very specific size range, no smaller than a thumbnail, no larger than a coin. He would pick up the first pebble. His fingers, calloused yet sensitive, would test its surface. Was it perfectly smooth? Did it have any rough edges, any unexpected facets? If it did, it was gently, almost apologetically, placed back onto the riverbed. If it met the smoothness criterion, he would then assess its color. Was it the correct shade of gray? Not too dark, not too light, but that precise, unremarkable middle gray that was the hallmark of the glimmer pebble. If it passed this test, he would then measure its size, visually, against the internal template he had perfected over countless hours. Only then, if the pebble met all 3 criteria, smoothness, color, and size, would it be deemed worthy. He would lift it from the riverbed, the stick guiding it, and place it into one of his small wooden boxes. As it settled into the box, he would softly murmur, 1. He would then repeat the process. Pick up another pebble, examine its smoothness, check its color, verify its size. If suitable, place it in the box. 2. And then, oh, free! His voice was a low, steady drone, like the distant, unchanging hum of an old refrigerator. Each number was enunciated with the same inflection, the same volume, the same pause before the next. The sun would slowly, imperceptibly, arc across the vast empty sky. Its light, as always, was never harsh, never exciting, just a gradual brightening from the diffused morning glow to a slightly brighter midday and then a gradual dimming towards the afternoon. The river, true to its name, glimmered with an unvarying, faint sheen, a constant, dull reflection of the sky above. No fish leaped from its surface, no birds sang from the uniform trees on the opposite bank, only the occasional, soft plop of a pebble falling back into the water if Arthur, after careful consideration, deemed it unsuitable for his count. The small wooden box would slowly fill. Each pebble added, each number murmured, contributed to the slow, steady accumulation. When the box was full, exactly 100 pebbles nestled within its confines, Arthur would pause. He would then meticulously transfer the pebbles from the small box to the larger, identical box. This transfer was done with the same care and precision as the initial selection. He would pick up each pebble from the small box, one by one, and place it into the larger box. As he did so, he would make a small, neat tick mark in his ledger for every 10 pebbles transferred. 10 pebbles, 1 tick, 20 pebbles, 2 ticks, until the small box was empty and 10 tick marks adorned his ledger. He would then stand, slowly, allowing his body to unkink from its kneeling position. There was no stiffness, no discomfort. His body, like his mind, was accustomed to the rhythm of his work. He would begin his walk back, along the unremarkable path, the canvas satchel, a familiar weight in his left hand. The journey back was identical to the journey there, each step, each breath, a precise echo of the morning. The evening in Stillwater was a continuation of the day's quietude, a simple, unseasoned bowl of oatmeal for dinner, eaten with the same precise, measured movements. He would sit in his perfectly upright chair, staring at the unadorned, grey wall of his living room. There were no books to read, no music to listen to, no television to watch. Just the quiet hum of the refrigerator, a sound so constant it was almost imperceptible. Then, precisely at 9 p.m., Arthur would rise. He would walk to his bed, pull back the unpatterned grey blanket, and lie down. He would close his eyes and drift into a dreamless sleep. Perhaps, in the deepest recesses of his unconscious, he would continue his count, not of pebbles, but of sheep, each one uniformly white, each one jumping over an identical low fence, one after another, endlessly into the vast, flat plain of his slumber. And so, another day passed in the life of Arthur, the pebble counter of the River Glimmer, a life perfectly designed for the quiet descent into slumber, a life of unwavering, profound, and utterly predictable monotony. The next morning, the clock would display 6 a.m. Arthur would open his eyes,